On this episode of the podcast, I welcome Stuart Swerdlow. Stuart is a world-renowned intuitive. He is an expert on all things occult, whether it's the Montauk Project, alien visitation, vibrating at the correct frequencies. You name it, Stuart knows it, and we're going to talk about it. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned.
Ooh, yeah, it's the Macho Man Randy Savage here telling you that you're listening to the Reality Roundhouse podcast. Yeah, with host Mike Strauss, a.k.a. Strauss21. So be prepared to get your mind blown. Dig it? Oh, yeah.
And welcome to another episode of the Reality Roundhouse podcast. I'm your host, as always, Mike Strauss, a.k.a. Strauss21. On this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. As you guys know, usually I'll have a guest or two in studio with me. We'll talk about whatever's on our mind, anything that is just eating at us, a topic, things like that, you know. But recently, I had an opportunity to talk with Stuart Swerdlow. Stuart is an author of over 15 different books, ranging from the Montauk Project to Blue Blood, True Blood, to the Secret Humanity Saga. I mean, the list goes on. I've been interested in Stuart's work for a long time. You could find a lot of his work and his seminars on his website, expansions.com. And if you just Google his name or YouTube his name, you could see many pieces of information as well as videos and seminars that Stuart gives. Well, I recently had an opportunity to have a conversation with Stuart, and I recorded for the podcast here, and I'm going to play it. We talk literally about everything from the Montauk Project, which he was actually an unwilling participant in, all the way to different alien species, the difference between aliens and extraterrestrials, and how the government differentiates the two, vibrating at different frequencies, human evolution. I mean, we talk literally about everything, and the reason is because Stuart literally knows about everything. So I had a great time with Stuart. I thank him for coming on the show, as well as his wife Janet, and helping setting the interview up here. So we'll get to that in just a moment. If you'd like to get a hold of me, email the show. I have a new email, as you guys may know from last episode. That is aka Strauss21 at realityroundhouse.com. Again, it's aka Strauss21 at realityroundhouse.com. Keep the emails coming. Tell me how awesome I am. Tell me how cool I am, how dumb I am, what I need to change, what I need to continue doing, whatever. Just shoot me an email. Tell me something. And of course, I have the lights out line, 708-669-4777 or 708-669-4RRP. It's because the 7 actually represents an R on the dial pad. So yeah, back in the day when we actually used to have to remember numbers. But yeah, give me a call. If you don't want to email me, give me a call. Let me know whatever's on your mind. If you have a topic, you want me to do a specific rant, you want me to have a certain guest on, give me a call, let me know. You guys know what time it is. Strauss knows best. Strauss knows best. Strauss knows best. On this rant of Strauss Knows Best, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about people who have their beliefs, but want to chastise you for having your beliefs because they're different from theirs. You know what I mean. For instance, someone who is heavily into religion or Catholicism, and let's say you are maybe an atheist or an agnostic and you don't necessarily believe in that, but they want to make you feel so insignificant, so petty, so dumb, for a lack of better words, because you don't believe in what they believe. As if what they believe is the be-all, end-all, and they have all the answers, right? Because Christianity's been around forever, okay, and they haven't copied off anybody, right? We could take this even farther than Christianity, of course, guys. I'm just using this as an example, but people that have their beliefs and they want to force them on everybody else because what they believe is gospel and what they believe is 100% true and accurate, and what you believe doesn't matter because they don't believe it. Listen, that's one of the amazing parts about being alive, is that everybody is different and everybody has their own opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just because your opinion differs from someone else's doesn't necessarily make theirs right, yours wrong, vice versa. It just is different, and it can be different. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, who's to say because someone believes in something and someone else believes in something that that person's wrong because we don't agree? I mean, just look at all the major wars. Most of them have been fought over religion and because people didn't see eye to eye. It's the number one cause of death on our planet since humans have evolved. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Let people be different, within reason, obviously, because, you know, if they don't agree with me, they're of course totally off base because, guys, Strauss does know best. All right, well, I'm going to take a quick little commercial break. Bill Harris, head of the Cast podcast, and I will be right back.
Hello there, person. Is real life getting you down?
Big league.
Get out of your head. Get into mine. On my show, the Head of the Cast podcast. Subscribe now. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Smart Radio. And don't forget,
followmyhead.com.
Check your head.
All right, that was Bill Harris, head of the Cast podcast. Check it out if you have not already. Without any further ado, I want to get right to my interview with Mr. Stuart Swerdlow. Enjoy. And right now, on the Reality Roundhouse podcast, I'm joined by Stuart Swerdlow. He is an author of over 15 books, ranging from The Montauk Project to The True World's History of the Human Saga. His great-uncle Yakov was the first president of the Soviet Union, and Yakov's brother was the creator, the founder of mind control and programming in the Soviet Union in the 1930s. And because of Stuart's family's background, he was recruited into the Montauk Project, and I'm pleased to have him on. Stuart, how are you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you very much.
Stuart, you are a very interesting man. I have been absolutely fascinated with your work for quite some time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you got recruited into the Montauk Project because of your family's history?
Yes, that is correct. And also because my father was involved in government projects in the early 1950s.
That was back in the Soviet Union?
Well, that was actually in the United States. And he was used in an underground facility near El Paso, Texas.
Oh, I've read a lot about the underground facility out there.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Now, in some of the interviews that you've done, you spoke a lot about Sirius A, some of the alien involvement here. You were involved in the Montauk Project from 1970 to 1983. Is that right?
That's correct.
What are some of the encounters that you could remember with ETs and aliens? Because I know that you actually differentiate, or the United States government differentiates the two.
Correct. ETs are actually beings who can be physical or non-physical, and not necessarily from this physical universe, whereas aliens are physical beings from this physical universe.
Okay, and that's interesting that the United States government would differentiate the two.
Well, the reason is they have a legal reason, because it is illegal for a U.S. citizen to have unsupervised contact with an ET, but it doesn't say anything about an alien.
Is that just so they could keep tabs on us?
Basically correct.
Wow.
And by the way, on that same page of law, it also says that a U.S. citizen cannot have unsupervised contact with a dolphin.
With a dolphin?
Correct. So that lets you know the category that they put dolphins in.
That's interesting. Now, I've read a lot about the dolphin connection with autism. Is there anything to that?
Yeah. Basically, people who have autism have dolphin genetics that are opened, and they do see the world in a very different way. And that's why in the 1980s, 1990s, the U.S. government put substances in vaccines for infants to open up any possible dolphin DNA so that they could identify those who might be a problem in the future. And that is why in the last 25 years, there's been a 400% increase in autism.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting about your work is you had mentioned that there's over like 100 or so different alien species that interact with the Earth on a daily basis?
Well, that's interesting. The government, and the last information I had from Air Force manuals in the late 1990s, identified 117 species which it considered to be hostile and to shoot on sight.
Wow.
And that is because the government has specific interactions with a very small amount of groups of aliens, maybe 5 or 6 different species, and they don't want the others to interfere.
Really?
Yeah, but there are, literally, in our galaxy alone, maybe tens of millions of species.
Wow. But our government only interacts with 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, the ones who enable their evil tactics.
Yeah, because one thing that you said that I definitely believe is that the malevolent ones, they don't, the good ones, they really don't interfere with us. It's just the ones that have evil intentions that kind of
Right.
nose around.
Correct. And, quite honestly, I know that there's a lot of people out there, the so-called New Agers, who believe that the aliens are love, light, and peace and here to help mankind and all that stuff. But the real truth is every species has its own agenda. They're here for a specific reason that suits them. And the ones who are truly benevolent maybe observe, maybe occasionally interact with a very few people, but for the most part, they stay away.
The hierarchy of those 5 or 6 races, that would be the reptoids, the reptiles would be the highest of them?
That's one of the main ones, yes.
Okay.
There are also groups from Zeta Reticuli. They're interacting now with a group from Polaris star system. There are also groups from Rigel star system, etc. But very few compared to what's out there.
Wow. Now, are you familiar with the Dogon tribe of Mali?
Yes, yeah, of course.
And
I was just in Mali last week.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very, very dusty place.
I've read a lot of books on the Dogon tribe, and I think it's really fascinating that they claim that they got their knowledge from the Sirius system.
Yes. Yes.
Is that true?
Well, most likely it is, but I want people to remember that Sirius A is a star system. It's not just one. It's not a planet. And the Sirius star system, there's Sirius A, B, and C. And each one of those has its own group of planets.
Oh, wow.
So there are many, many different civilizations from that same location.
Wow, so there's just so many.
For example, if someone says, I met a European, well, are they Swedish, Italian, Portuguese, what European?
Right.
So from Sirius A, there are many civilizations.
I was just listening to one of the interviews that you had too, and I think the interview asked you about the crash in Roswell, and you went on to say that there was many, many crashes throughout the 40s and the 50s.
Right.
One in particular was in Louisiana. It appeared in a swamp that a craft was just left untouched.
Intact. Completely intact.
Wow. Now, was that a gift to us, or?
Well, yes. I won't say it was a gift as much as when you give a child a toy and you want to see what they do with it.
I gotcha. Is that something that the species that interact with us, is that something that they've been doing throughout history, just kind of seeing what we do with this technology?
Well, many of these races were here before humans were here. They consider this to be their world, not ours. And so there's a lot of hostility towards humans on this planet.
Yeah, why is that? Why are they so hostile towards us?
Well, first of all, it's a long story, but there's one particular group that calls itself the Network. And they claim to be 17,000 different worlds in collaboration from the Milky Way into the Andromeda galaxy. And they said that this planet is in their territory and that humans are the invaders here.
Really?
That's one aspect. And then, of course, there's the reptilians who came here before any mammals were here, and they claim that, therefore, they are the ones who should have this world, not human beings. And there are many races like that.
So humans have a mixture of mammalian and reptilian DNA.
Correct.
And that is because we were basically genetically engineered?
Yes. When the reptilians were here, and they were here for quite a number of millennia before humans arrived, or I should say the original humans arrived, and then there was battles between the two of them. And in order to create a peaceful situation, it was decided to create a third race that was the synthesis of the mammalian and reptilian, and that is what we have now. And that's why it says in Genesis, let us make man in our image. It's all plural. It's not a singular God doing this. It's a group effort.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. That's something that I've always noticed, too. It is right there. Yeah, us. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always believed, too, is that we were kind of a reality show for the world, I guess, to see.
Well, this entire planet is an experiment. It's let's say, a proxy for other races to interact with each other here. And really, as an analogy, this planet is the Syria of the galaxy.
A hostile area?
Yes, so where the people just come here, do what they want, fight with each other on this territory, and manipulate as they see fit.
Wow, that's so interesting. Now, is it true what Zecharia Sitchin was about the Anunnaki?
Well, it's known in that particular genre of research that he either misinterpreted or mistranslated many of the Sumerian documents. Whether that was on purpose or accidental, we don't know.
Yeah, because I heard you say that what you believe is that he misinterpreted that on purpose, and I kind of tend to believe that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I met him, and I knew him briefly back in the 90s, and quite honestly, he was a difficult person.
So going back to the Anunnaki, do you believe or do you know if that is accurate, that they actually did come here and create like a slave race to mine
Yes, they
gold?
did.
Okay.
It's in my Blue Blood book.
It is, okay. I was actually just looking at, because I've only read one of your books, and I've read the Montauk book, and I was looking to, looking up your books. You have quite a few books there on your website.
Yeah, we're still publishing more.
That's good. Books are good. I think that's a lost art nowadays. You know, everybody just wants their information in quick little bursts. It's like, sit down and read a book.
Well, quite honestly, you don't make money from books. It's just to get information out. In fact, it costs more than you get back.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. That's for sure.
Yes.
Now, I heard you say, too, about Nibiru, how back in 2003, Nibiru was kind of exploded, I guess.
Blown up.
Yeah. Now, I guess who and why? Why did that happen?
Well, going back to the Anunnaki and the creation of their slave race, and they come back every 3,600 years or so, and it was their time to come back. And they had a Stargate under Baghdad, and the Museum of Baghdad is built right over it, and there are tunnel systems going right into it. And the Illuminati did not want the Anunnaki to come back and find what happened to their slave race, and so they blew them up as they passed Jupiter.
Wow. And that's
They
why
used the particle beam accelerator.
that wasn't CERN. That was a different one?
Yeah, CERN was after that, came after that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm actually only about 10 minutes or so from Aurora, Illinois, and of course that's where the Fermilab
yes.
is. What is Fermilab?
Well, it's the American version of CERN.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's another particle beam accelerator that creates the vortices and wormholes. And in fact, back in the early 2000s, was creating havoc at O'Hare Airport because incoming aircraft would notice jets coming in their path, which were sometimes appeared on radar and sometimes not. And they would go into evasive actions, but there was actually no physical craft there. So whenever Fermilabs turned on their particle beam accelerator, it created a connection to an alternate reality where there was a bleed-through of these aircraft from another time-space.
And I actually remember that, too. I remember when O'Hare was having all that difficulty.
Yeah, it was in the newspapers.
Mm-hmm. It sure was. That's very interesting. So basically, it's nefarious intentions. They're not good.
Yes, listen, these projects do not have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, because growing up around here, we always heard, you hear wise tales and legends and about white deer. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Supposedly, there's all this white deer that is running around, and because it's a big fenced off area, and you can't even get within, I want to say maybe 100 yards, or else security will nicely greet you with weapons. So
Yes. Well, what about in Wisconsin, where there are kangaroo hopping around and werewolves?
I haven't heard the kangaroo, but I have heard the werewolves.
Yeah, look up Wisconsin kangaroos, and you will find a few stories about that.
Now, why would that be?
Well, because they're being bleeped in from another reality.
Oh, interesting. Do they have something similar to, there's like a wormhole or a portal up near Wisconsin?
Well, the entire Great Lakes area is a natural vortex. And if you look at the map at the Great Lakes, you can see how they swirl like a spiral around Michigan. And it's a natural location for incoming vehicles, interdimensional things.
Now, I've always been fascinated with UFOs, aliens, ever since I was a child, and I've always researched them and whatnot. And the Rendlesham Forest incident.
In Britain, yes.
Yes. Now, supposedly, Officer James Pennison, he had contact with a spacecraft, and when he touched it, a series of binary code flashed in his mind, and years later he had this translated, and it turned out to basically say, "We are you from a future time." Does that sound believable? Does that sound accurate? Are humans from a future time? Could we be possibly coming back to visit our current self?
Well, it's you can't just categorically say that that's the one answer. There are many answers. There are many groups and groups within the groups, so it's very likely that that was just one of the groups that contacted. And as you know from Montauk Project, we learned about time and space, and that really time and space are illusions. They don't really exist. And that there is a technology that you can go back and forth.
Yes. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, every point in time and space has a frequency. Think of a radio where you turn the dial ever so slightly and you get a completely different station, but on the same radio. So the Earth or the universe is like a radio. And if you turn to just a different frequency, you go into a different reality or dimension. There are infinite realities, so that there are many, many different versions of Earth. And I have researched many interactions with what we call people who receive information or contact other beings. And I've looked at information over the last literally 5,000 years. And there have been many reports where, especially in the last 20 years, where the beings say that they are from Earth, but not this one. They're from another version of Earth. And the reason that they come here is when they set off nuclear explosions and electromagnetic pulses and things like this, that energy can bleed through and rip open the, let's say, the borders between dimensions. So it doesn't only affect here, it affects them.
Wow.
And they don't like that, and they want it to stop. So they come here to see what the heck is going on.
Wow, Ed, something that I think people should know too is these things you've been writing about this for many, many years, and you've been trying to get this information out to the public for many years. And what physicists are discovering now is that everything you were saying 25, 30 years ago is absolutely true. Because now they're coming out and saying that, yeah, every situation, every possibility, there's infinite possibilities. You were saying this in the early 90s.
Yes, and you know what? They spent like $100 billion to figure that out, and I would have told them for $1 billion.
Yeah, cut them a deal, right?
But it saved them a lot of money.
Yeah, I guess going back to the Montauk Project, what were some of the, 'cause you were such a young kid at that time, what were some of the beings from other planets that you interacted with?
Well, there were quite a few. One that I remember the most are the very big reptilians. and there were 7 different species of those. There were also the beings from Sirius A, different type than the Dogon tribe talked about. There were also beings from Tau Ceti, beings from Procyon, even Pleiadian, which are very different than what the New Age says. Very many different species, and I list them in the Blue Blood book that you have.
Now, something that you said kind of resonated with you was there was a butterfly entity?
Yeah, that wasn't at Montauk.
Okay.
That was when I was a child.
Oh.
And I had been taken to a platform that was literally orbiting the Earth. And on this platform were many, many different species that were observing what was going on. And one that I was shown was this huge butterfly that spoke, or I should say communicated mentally only.
You weren't scared. You had kind of a warm and a good feeling about this entity.
From the entity, yes. Quite honestly, my interactions with these beings was very unnerving at the time. But they do something to your mind and to your nervous system that kind of dulls your reaction so that you don't react in a negative way.
Do you know about the Rothschild family? Do you know anything about them? I'm sure you do, but can you speak on that
a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
A lot. There's a lot to know about them.
I know I was actually just turned on to them pretty recently, and wow, there's a ton of things out there about them.
Well, they've been in power for over 800 years. So now there's a battle already begun between 3 of the families to take over from them.
What were the opposing families?
Well, the Windsors, of course, and the Romano family.
Now they're currently jostling for power?
They're kind of infighting, The Romano family has taken control of Russia again, and they're not. They have a vendetta, I would say, against the Rothschilds and Windsors. And the Windsors, of course, consider themselves to be more important than the Rothschilds, and so they want to take power over. And that's why that's the real reason Britain removed itself from the EU.
Really?
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Now, is there a certain, is there a certain race or a certain species of ETs or aliens that are kind of backing these families?
Well, they each, of course, had their own connections to the reptilians, but the Romano family seems to have more connection to beings from Tau Ceti. The Rothschild are very connected to Sirius A and Aldebaran. And the Windsor family seems to be collecting new ones. They seem to be going towards new species that we haven't seen before. But generally, they stay with the reptilians.
Wow. Seems like it always comes back to the reptilians.
Yeah, well, they were here first, yeah.
Now, when the government stages this alien invasion that you have been speaking about for some time, you believe that the reptilians are going to be the race that, quote unquote, and I use this term loosely, will come to save the day?
Yes, they will use them as a savior race, yes.
And that's just to kind of further manipulate and program the populace?
Well, yes, and it was the reptilians who brought programming to this planet.
Is that just to get their agenda across?
Well, they believe in that as part of their culture because reptilian genetics, the mindsets, over eons of time never change. And that's because the programming keeps it focused and in a straight line forward and no deviation. And to them, that ensures the continuation of their civilization.
And they are androgynous beings.
Correct. The originals, yes, there are hybrids who have gender.
Really? Okay. And you believe that's why we're seeing in current society more of a move towards
Androgyny.
yeah, and well, it's funny because once you said that, it clicked in me, and you're exactly right about that. You're seeing that everywhere now
Yes.
with all the celebrities, and one thing that you said was if your child wants to do it and you try to say something to your child, you're looked at like you're abusing your child. So
Right, it's child abuse. If if your 3-year-old decides he wants to be a girl, you have to make him a girl. Like a 3-year-old really knows what that's about.
exactly. That move towards one sex is basically the reptilians' agenda.
Correct.
Wow.
And you may have seen on my podcast recently that there's an entire movement to remove words that designate gender from the language.
Really?
So that if you call someone a he or a she and they aren't accepting of that term, you are abusing that person and you could be legally responsible.
That is absurd.
Yes.
Wow.
Facebook has 54 different gender categories.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It is. It is. I don't, and me having 2 children myself, I really don't like where it's going. But
Right.
there's only so much I can do, But
Well, you have to talk to your children, and you have to know your audience. And of course, if your kids go to public school, you cannot ever discuss it there.
yes, this is true. Well, Stuart, you are a very interesting and fascinating man. I've been submerged in your work for quite some time now. I want to thank you for coming on my podcast. Where can everybody get a hold of you or look you up, find your work, all that stuff?
Yeah, just go to my website, expansions.com. I have fan pages on Facebook. So does my wife, Janet. And everything that you'll need to find is on either the website or Facebook.
And Expansions are very cool. You could find all your books there as well.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much, Stuart, for your time. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you taking a couple minutes with me today. And Janet, tell Janet thank you, too. She was very pleasant in helping set this up.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to your audience.
Thank you, sir. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, and that was my interview with Mr. Stuart Swerdlow. Wow, I mean, what can I say? As you guys heard, Stuart knows literally a little bit, or a lot, I should say, about just about everything. Very interesting man. I thank him again for coming on the Reality Roundhouse podcast. Again, Stuart is someone who I have followed his work for quite some time, and it was an honor to have him on my show, and I hope we have the opportunity to do it again in the future. So yeah, guys, that was this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, concerns, hit me up, aka Strauss21 at Reality Roundhouse, or give me a call, 708-669-4777. Of course, be sure to follow aka Strauss21 on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, all those things. Of course, follow the Reality Roundhouse podcast on Facebook. And as Stuart just told you, 54 different sexual orientations. Actually, I looked this up. There's 58 as of now. So Stuart knows what he's talking about, believe you me. Anything that you heard in this episode, go look up. Feel free. If you don't believe Stuart, go look it up. You can see for yourself. Yes, do all those things. Your life will be a whole lot better. This episode was a blast. Thank you again, Stuart Swerdlow. Thank you again, Janet, for helping make this possible. I am Mike Strauss, aka Strauss21. It's been a blast. I'm out.